Hello, 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 and welcome back to a brand new episode of Kerbal Space Programming. Cheers, Kevin here, and oh boy, look, it's the game screen. We're finally here again. We're finally back playing the actual game and not just messing around with various bits of code. I have a PC that is working and able to record a bunch of stuff. KOS 1.0 has been released, it's installed, we're going to start playing around with it. So let's go ahead and load up our new save. Now, when we last left off, we were on a whole other version of KSP. I went ahead and did a fresh install, copied over the save file, tried to install a bunch of the various mods that I had been using. I did discover a couple of things where I had to kind of mess around. There's Surface Lights was a mod that basically hasn't been updated. There is an update that's like Surface Mounted Stock-alike Parts mod or something like that basically ends up using, it looked to be the same thing. But of course, it's been a while since we've been in here, so I wanted to kind of jump in and sort of see what the heck were we even doing. All right, so this is a Lunar probe that we had from way back, and this thing is dead. Was not able to get back, if I remember correctly. Then we have our wonderful little OmniSat network that gives us kind of full, not full, but pretty significant coverage over Kerbal, which is great. We've got Mustachio, which is a lander that landed on the moon. It didn't come back or anything, and it doesn't have line of sight most of the time, but hey, that was a thing. And of course, then we have KSS, our station. Let's take a look at the station, because we kind of stopped working on the station. I'm sure there's plenty more stuff that we could be doing, but docking ended up being such a challenging task, and particularly just sort of tuning our RSS stuff. RCS, sorry, not our RSS. I've been doing too much podcast syndication junk. Anyway, yeah, but here we have like our little tugboat guy that's autonomous, and this refueling craft that's autonomous, and then the brains of the actual thing. And I am excited to see that the surface light parts here, they do still work, which means that the mod that that replaced that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, the mod that I replaced with seems to be just fine, which is wonderful. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Let me see. Should I adjust the? I've got Plan to Shine in here because I don't want to make sure things aren't too dark for people viewing, because I know sometimes that gets, especially on YouTube, it gets to be a little iffy. You'll have to let me know in the comments how well that is, because you don't want to brighten everything up, because then it's like, well, are we even in space? But okay. The big thing that we did last time, and I love that I can just do this now, I can get a list of all of the things from here, from the map view, was we launched Herald 1. And I'm going to switch to Herald 1. Switch to Herald 1. Come on, Herald 1. There we go. And so the idea was that this was a satellite that we sent around to the moon. It went from the launch pad all the way up here on its own. Basically, we didn't even have to hit a button to launch it. As soon as we clicked from the VAB, we put it on the launch pad, it shot off, it circularized, it found a transfer orbit, and then it circularized around the moon as well, which is fantastic. And then, of course, it enabled the antennas, where now it has a connection. I guess right now it's relaying through the Kios app, but it also has a connection, most of the time would have a connection to Mission Control, and it also has an Omni antenna around, so that it can be kind of a good relay sat around here. Now, one important thing to worry about, or I guess be excited about, when we're dealing with new versions of things, particularly KSP and KOS, is, oh no, has everything changed? Sometimes you'll find that certain chip designs don't do so well in some, because the atmosphere has been tweaked, or the physics is a little bit different, or even you're just playing it on a different machine for, whatever reason. Or with KOS, you may find that certain things don't work the same way, or you need to update things. So I figured, hey, let's go ahead and just recreate this Herald mission to kind of give ourselves a reminder of what we were doing, and then also see, hey, what breaks. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the Space Center, and we're going to jump into the VAB and grab Herald 1, and we'll just make Herald 2, right? Hopefully it is not a very I'm imagining it's not a very costly craft, because it has been several months since we did kind of any of this, so it's, oh man, and I have so many different parts in here. I've not copied over the script files, so we'll have to worry about that, but okay, so there's Herald 1. We'll go ahead and load Herald 1, and I'm just going to rename it right away to Herald 2. Wonderful. And you see, yeah, this is basically there's a single launch stage, and then there's the craft. Okay, so let's, not the Communitron, I want to adjust our boot file. And this is the first thing you're going to notice here. Let me just compact that up. The first thing you're going to notice with KOS 1.0, particularly if you're doing a fresh install like I am and you don't have a whole bunch of files in here, is you may be used to, oh no, there's that boot thing. Where's my boot? I don't know. What am I supposed to be? I'm expecting a boot file. So let me go ahead and switch over to... Oh, no. There we go. Yeah, I have my Kerbal Space Program folder open, and I want to show you something that's a little bit different with KOS 1.0, and that is if I go into the ship's script folder, where typically you would have your whatever.ks files, and in the past we'd had, herald.boot.ks or launchthing.boot.ks or mustachio.launch.boot.ks, or rather boot. Anyway, you have all your boot files and you have all your files. You'll now see that there is a folder that has been added, which is just called boot, and there's nothing in it. But this should hint that things are about to get really, really cool, and in fact, they are. So I'm going to jump over now to my dev environment, which is running in a Linux VM, and hopefully should look pretty similar to what I was doing on my Mac, but I'm not going to be doing stuff on my Mac anymore because some of the colors are going to be a little bit different. I apologize I know everybody's threatened by change. We have these folders, and yeah, okay, so the last episode that we ran had this boot.herald.ks file. I'm going to go ahead and actually just copy... Actually, I don't know if I can copy that from here. I'm just going to copy that directory. Let's see, episodes EO037, EO037. Yeah, I'm going to copy it recursively to episodes EO38. So we can go ahead and start making some changes, right? All right. So, why did I do that? Just, yeah. Okay. 37, and refresh that. There we go, 38. So we'll not worry about... I am good at computers, I promise. Okay, EO38. So we have this boot.herald.ks file, and its whole job was to go ahead and say, hey, here are all of the various libraries that are required. If they don't already exist, copy them from the archive, and then we had to manually run each and every one of them because run did not accept a string argument. Now, we did talk about one of the features of KOS 1.0 is you get run path, and then you can pass it a string argument, which is amazing because then we could just put that in here, and then, so we only have to type these things out once, which is great. We're not going to do that now because all we're trying to do is figure out what is broken with what we are currently doing. And, of course, remember what it is that we're currently doing. So we have this boot file, and we have these mission files. Yeah, don't save any changes. And we have this mission that basically tells us what was going on. We had this pre-flight and launch and ascent and circularize and all the things, all of the steps to get to the moon. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy everything from episode... I'm going to copy everything from episodes EO38. Yeah. That ends in a .ks extension. I'm just going to copy that over to the KSP folder, which I also have on here. Ships script, and there we go. Let's see. Yes, and now if you look over at the Windows viewer, you can see, yeah, okay, so it's copied everything in there. That's exactly the way we want it. But now that we have this boot folder, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So let's actually change into here. And, oh man, that is just hideous. I need to fix the colors on this thing. Who gave me permission to do this? I'm going to move the boot.herald file, and I'm going to put it in the boot folder and just call it herald.ks. And again, if we jump back over, we can see that it's been moved, and inside here we just have this boot folder, and now we don't need to worry about naming conventions for our boot files. We can just name them something.ks and put them in the boot folder, and then our machine just our install just knows, well, that's where to look. So let's jump back now into KSP, and there we go. Of course, it's not a live updating sort of situation. Just in the same way that we need to revert to launch if we've updated files on the... you don't need to always revert to launch, but if you... Yeah. We need to exit the VAB and go back into the VAB for that to take place. We'll go ahead, launch it up, see what's going on, and then... Oh, man. It always zooms me out, and I don't have... I use a weird mouse, so I don't have a scroll wheel. I just have a scroll to drag thing. Anyway, no, not the Communitron. Why am I clicking the Communitron? Okay, so we have boot file not found. Now, okay, so now it detects that there are boot files, and so it does give us the dialog. It's saying not found because presumably Herald 1 had boot.herald1.ks set as it, and so now it's going, hey, I see you have an entry for it. What? It's not there. But if we click, we see boot file none, and then we see here boot file herald.ks. You notice nothing says boot in the name. It's just that it is in the boot folder. That's pretty fantastic. I'm excited about that. So, okay. Don't remember much about this craft. It has 5,600 meters per second in delta V, so that seems reasonable. Seems like it should be able to pull this off. It's got some stabilizing fins and some launch clamps and fuel tanks and big battery things, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. Let's go ahead and, yeah, we've got this saved. Let's go ahead and launch it and just see what we see. And if we can just get this thing going here. All right. And immediately we see a whole bunch of warnings. And these are all kind of squashed. They're all kind of squashed together, which is frustrating. So I'm actually going to open up the terminal. And let me see if I can increase the size on this a little bit for you. Yeah, unfortunately the buttons move around when you click them, which is a little aggravating. You can see that it is mad about a bunch of things. So it's a copy mission runner from blah, 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 is deprecated. Use copy path. And yeah, I've screwed up the display of this a little bit. Let me see if can I get it back? Use copy path. Okay, there we go. That's readable, I guess. Use copy path, and then it has a string that says 0:/ the file name.ks instead. That's pretty awesome. What that means is we can now just say copy path, and we can treat our volumes like the C drive or the D drive or whatever on your Windows machine. So it's warning us that copy is deprecated. Copy still works in KOS 1.0, but there is a better option now. We don't need to say copy from 0. We can just say copy path, and presumably we give it a source and then an output directory. So I'm going to go ahead. Well, yeah, we'll close that for now, and we can look. Whoops. Oh, yeah, there we go. We can look. Oof. Yeah, if we look here, this is actually in the boot file. It's exactly this line where we say, if the file doesn't exist, copy it from 0. We'll eventually just replace that with copy path. We're not going to do that now because we're going to see kind of exactly what goes on with this craft, and hopefully it will become a non-issue. Oh man, this is kind of crazy being able to record some of these things, like being able to switch back and forth between all of this live, because normally this has been, I guess normally, I don't know. In the past, I was pretty much recording everything kind of separately and then just worrying about synchronizing it all in post, which, man, required an awful lot of editing for these. Being able to hopefully do a little more live-y type stuff or toggling back and forth between the various systems is promising, but there is some concern now that this thing may explode. It's either going to explode or be the most efficient thing of all time. Because, okay, we're at 30 kilometers up, and yeah, we're at 1,600 meters per second. We better reach main engine cutoff pretty soon, I hope, because that is a very fast begin. Well, no, we're in the upper atmosphere. This is not unreasonable. It's just that, yeah, the tuning parameters that we found on an older version of KSP, admittedly, do have us in a pretty explodious side. But okay, we've passed main engine cutoff, which is good, so we're not going to explode yet, necessarily. We have no connection, which makes sense. We should have had no, I assume we had no connection as soon as we left the launch pad, because again, this thing, we're not building ourselves an escape hatch. And as soon as this thing hits 70 kilometers, I think, trying to think, then I think once it hits 70 kilometers, it is going to start planning its own circularization. And if you remember, what we used for that was this idea of hill climbing. Now, the idea with hill climbing is that you imagine that you're standing in a mountain range and you want to be the king of all of the mountains. Well, what you're going to do is you want, obviously, to be the king of the mountains, you need to find the topmost part of the highest mountain. And one of the solutions to this sort of problem is, well, take a step in any direction and then go, hey, am I higher here than I was before? And then if so, move in that direction. And this is exactly the same strategy that we are applying here. We start with an empty maneuver node, which is, hey, here's a maneuver that does nothing. There's nothing in the prograde direction, nothing in the radial direction, nothing in the normal direction. And then we'll say, hey, if I add a little bit of delta V to this direction, is that better? Is that closer to my goal? And if so, then great. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now, this is not a solution to all problems. If you imagine you're trying to be king of the mountains, one of the possible outcomes of applying this strategy is that you are going to be a person who stands around the, at the peak of not the tallest mountain. That's called local optimum, which is frustrating. But in this case, there's no sort of like, oh, well, this is a circular orbit, but man, there's a better one that we could have found. This is like we're just trying to hone in on it. And actually, if we look back at the code, because we've got a few minutes while this thing does its business, if we look at the mission, this is our circularized step. Let's jump down, ascent, circularize. There we go. Find a good circularization delta V. We have hill climb, seek, and we're giving it some sort of circular fitness function to tell it when it is a circle, and we tell it to step its delta V by 100, and then to step it by 10, and then to step it by 1. So we start off with a maneuver, and we say, what about 100 delta V forward versus 100 delta V backward, which is better? And then once it finds the best that it can, only stepping in 100 increments, then it does it with 10, and then it does it with 1. This is just to speed up so it doesn't have to take every individual delta V as its whole other step. And then it goes and executes that maneuver. And actually, if we look for circular fitness, circular fitness. Yeah, so it grabs the maneuver and then adds the maneuver, and then it just looks at the eccentricity. So we're not saying the periapsis has to be anything. We're saying your fitness is the negative of your eccentricity. If you're, remember, for a circular orbit, your eccentricity is 0. For a very elliptical orbit, your eccentricity is 1. And so we presumably start off with a relatively bad score, and then, you'll find a higher score as you get to something that's a bit more circular. So anyway, we're coming up on our maneuver. Oh, man, that was beautifully timed. And yeah, it is executing our maneuver. Fantastic. Although, man, it does not have a lot of fuel on this stage. How much stage view? Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, well done. All right, it managed to finish its circularization maneuver. Oh, and now it's doing another calculation. Now, this one is more challenging. What it is trying to do is it's trying to get to the moon. And I do, as much as this is kind of frustrating to watch, I enjoy it. It's like an egg shell hatching or something. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I like watching this. It's a little bit hypnotic. What this one is doing is it is adding maneuver, and then it is looking at its apoapsis, I think. Or maybe just looking at its position halfway through its orbit. Roughly. And then it is trying to say, okay, what is my position when I'm here, and what is the moon's position when I'm here, and what is that distance? And it's trying to minimize that distance. Now that it has found an encounter, it is trying to optimize against the difference between its, whoa, what? That does not look good. It was trying to get it should have been getting us a 40 kilometer periapsis, but that does not look like a good encounter. All right, well, we will see what you pull off, but that is other moon encounter, moon escape. Okay, so we're going to be around the moon for 3 minutes. That's good. That's great. I don't know how it. Yeah, so there's something weird with our. That'll be interesting. Okay, well, let's see. It's a 16-second burn. That is somewhat disappointing, but hopefully, if this thing goes well, it'll activate all its antenna, and then we can be like, hey, you know that super crazy orbit? Maybe it won't even get into an orbit. Who knows? Because I guess, yeah, it's 3 minutes to circularize, and then even then, it waits a little bit after it transfers, because occasionally KSP will go back and forth between, oh, you're in the sphere of influence of the moon. Nope, just kidding. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't firing stuff while we were not in the moon sphere of influence. But yeah, we will have to see what happens here. We are doing fine on fuel now, though, and electric charge is doing great. I do love this new dialogue thing that I can just move around so it's not in the way and stuff. That is pretty cool. Okay, there's your encounter. Okay, that's something. And it's okay. So it's chasing the maneuver around a little bit. Yeah, our maneuver. So it's running a very, very little throttle, but it is still chasing it until it goes, I'm close enough. And okay, so there it is. It's done. And I can't even see. Yeah, okay, so moon encounter, 19 minutes. Okay, so that's a little bit better. We now have, this is not much of a flyby. We now have, yeah, 8 minutes around the moon. Okay, now the one thing that this script does not do is it doesn't time warp us out to the moon. So I'm going to do that. Oh, no, I can't. Let me pick our current. Well, all right, I guess I'll just manually. I was going to do the whole warp to here thing. I'd much rather do that, actually. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, boy. That looks more like a collision than an encounter. But, all right, we'll see. We will see what happens. Oh, okay. That's less of a collision. There is a... I have no idea what's going to happen here. This is interesting. All right. I don't want to warp all the way to there, because what if it changes again now? Right? So the script, yeah, let's just make sure this hasn't done anything crazy yet. Okay, so we still have the same errors, but nothing new has happened. I'll go ahead and just move that sort of down here. Yeah, so it is going to wait 30 seconds, and then it's going to plot its own... oh, there we go. Oh, no. All right. So it is going to wait 30 seconds, and then it is going to try and circularize again. But I doubt it is planned for this eventuality. Who knows? Maybe past me will be full of wonderful surprises, but I highly doubt it. We're going to have to see. Oh, there we go. See, it is trying to plan a Oh, that is brilliant. You brilliant machine. It found a circularization maneuver. It did. I will give it at least that amount of credit. That is truly something. Oh, boy. Okay. Well, I have to confess, this is not the first time that I ran this, though this is the first time that happened. In fact, the previous times were kind of equally terrible, but for a completely different reason, and that is, I'm going to jump over to of course, I have my key mappings mapped weirdly, so it's like enabling temperature highlights and something. The reason we encountered errors in the versions that you didn't see comes down to this enable antenna function. It did, in my other run-throughs, find a wonderful circularization, which was fantastic. But as soon as it got out there, it encountered a particular issue. And this line in particular threw an issue, argument out of range. And it was mad about the 0 at the end of this line. So, I'm going to try and explain why that is. I guess, yeah, we can refer to Herald 1, who is still alive. Yeah, great. So... all right. Oh, well, we had debris separately crashing into the moon. That must have been the bigger explosion. Yeah, we'll go to the tracking station, then switch to Herald 1 so I can show what happened. Now, the idea here is that our enable antenna stuff will go ahead, grab Herald 1, grab the comms dish, which is deployed here, because this was run on the older version of KOS, and then it would activate this Communitron as well. So... here's the thing, though. This is the Communitron DTS-M1. If we look at the line of code here, this is grabbing a ship whose part is titled Comms DTS Mark 1, and it's saying, and that's going to give us a list of all of the parts on the craft with that name. I'm going to say take the first one, which is index 0, and then we're going to get the modular T antenna and activate it and target it at Kerbal. Since the last update, it's not comms anymore. It is Communitron. So that simple typo in the, I don't know, depending on your attitude, the more thrilling or the other way that this thing could have gone is that because we didn't change that one line, and because the part was renamed since we were last here, yeah, this thing would have gotten out there, would have circularized, and then neither of the antennas would have activated because the Communitron activates afterward. So it crashed on this line, so there was no way of getting any access to this part at all. In fact, just to be safe, although who knows if this is safe, because maybe the Communitron's name has changed as well, we should check that. I'm just going to reverse the orders of this for the next time that we run this task, because presumably we can do a Herald 3. We'll go ahead and we'll try and clean up our mission stuff. We'll try and clean up that boot file so that we're not using copy. We'll use copy path, which is the much nicer version. But man, yeah. Okay, so, you know, at least we've still got one wonderful, beautiful little relay guy out there. He's doing his job. Yeah, let's check this real quick. Communitron 16. Okay. So, all right. Well, we chose to go to the moon, but we failed on this time. I think what this does say as well is that we do need to have a step that takes place. So some of the things that I want to tackle in the next episode for Herald 3 is I want to first off fix that Communitron issue that you didn't see but I saw more than one time. Also, fix this whole issue of crashing into the moon, because that's not great. But one of the other things is that when we were actually doing our transfer, that was not a great transfer. And part of the reason is that when you're doing a transfer straight from low, there's it's very easy to overshoot or undershoot. What we could do is basically do the exact same thing of say, hey, tweak this until our periapsis is what we want it to be, but just from like halfway. So just a very tiny correction burn and let that get us a little bit closer. So we'll go ahead and add a correction burn for our transfer, and then I think we'll add a correction burn after we enter the sphere of influence as well. Not just a circularization burn, because, man, did it ever find a solution? It really tried. Anyway, so that is it for me for this week. We're going to go ahead and try and fix things up for Herald 3 in the next episode. Until then, have a fun and wonderful time with KOS 1.0. I'm super excited, really excited to be back. Let me know what you're looking forward to seeing, and I will see you next week. Cheers.